Hey there, Laker fans. Welcome to a bonus double dose of Lakers detailed this week. I'm your host, Vinay, with my co host, Raj. Raj, it is Friday night, December 13th, a little
hmm
before 9. It's 9:20 Pacific Standard Time. The reason why I'm giving all of these timestamps is because we are less than 48 hours away from 80%, 90%, maybe somewhere in between that of the NBA of players in the NBA who signed their contracts this season with a bunch of different teams, free agents and whatnot, being trade eligible. It is a very, very highly anticipated time, I think, for the Lakers as well as other teams. We already actually had a trade that was made in preliminary agreement. A guy that we rooted for, Thomas Bryant, being
Yeah.
traded from the Miami Heat for a second round swap to the Indiana Pacers. Um, so I feel like it might be busier. December might be a little bit more busier than it typically is, especially more than it was last season. But the Lakers had a game today, Raj, before we get
Yeah.
into it, that we need to discuss. And we're going to get into all of that.
But
And
before we
for the
go there, I just want
for, yeah,
as my favorite Thomas Bryant, I guess factoid is something you said during the trade deadline. Just I think a lot of strange moves are happening. You're like,
yeah.
Thomas Bryant requested a trade to go to a team with a center that plays more than the guy ahead of him here. And everyone just completely accepted that as a fact. I just think that was the most hilarious thing in the world. And he went and played behind DeAndre Jordan. Shout out Thomas Bryant, the guy that I rooted for, that I had high hopes for. I think an injury I forgot what his injury was, Vinay, but I think it was a lower leg injury that really kind of sapped him.
Yeah.
Had a career year next to Russell Westbrook in Washington, and then got his contract. But
It was an ACL tear. I think Thomas tore his
yeah,
ACL.
right, and was never
Yeah,
the same player
yeah.
again. I think just the athleticism kind of zipped from him. Still looks like he's 18, even though he's now like 26 or whatever it is. Yeah, first player traded this season. Do I have that correct? Thomas
Yeah.
Bryant, first player. Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember if anybody got traded during prior to this. Maybe something, there might have been a small trade, but yes, Thomas Bryant. The Lakers very famously have this amazing ability. The joke was, for the folks that don't know it, Lakers have this amazing ability of removing accountability from themselves when they trade somebody away via the media, and if it's not outright kicking somebody in the butt as they leave their trade away from the team, they'll say something like, well, he requested a trade. We did this with DeAndre Jordan, if you remember. DeAndre Jordan requested a trade away from the Lakers,
Hmm.
and he didn't necessarily want to be there. They did it with Thomas Bryant. And I was just like, he requested a trade to the Denver Nuggets. And remember, he requested a trade because he wanted more of an opportunity to play, which he knew he wasn't going to get behind Anthony Davis. So Laker fans were like, oh, how dare Thomas Bryant? Oh, he
Right.
wants to play more minutes with instead of AD. And I was just like, I don't think he said that. I don't think that's what he wants to do. And then he went to
And
Denver, who
didn't
had
play at all.
didn't play. Oh man. Okay, so I don't know if there's gonna be shenanigans like that this year, but I wouldn't be shocked if there is. But Raj, how are you doing? We didn't even get to small talk. How are you doing, bro? You are on the South Bay Lakers beat.
Yes.
You went
Yes.
to a game today. I think you had a game also as well that you watched, or yesterday or recently.
Yeah, so they were in Phoenix. Bronny played his
Mm-hmm.
first road game. Dropped 30 points, by the way.
Yes.
Shout out Brian, dropped 30. Dropped 16 more tonight in a back-to-back. Didn't shoot as well. We'll have a piece, coming up soon on that. But yeah, it's what could I ask more of my Friday night, Vinay? Watching the Lakers slip away another game of unseriousness on that end. I think I texted you some colorful words about the defense early on, but yeah, that's how I'm doing. The whole league, when I'm waiting for December 15th, is just it's
Clearly, yeah,
a sad state of being for me, who tries to really, and I think both of us do, try to really hone in on kind of the moment and current standings, and it feels like everyone else is like, well, 2 days, everyone else can be traded. Like, all right,
yeah,
I guess that's where we're at.
yeah. If you're wondering why the ratings are down in the NBA, this is probably one of the reasons why. Like more people are interested in seeing who's going to get traded to where, and all the drama that surrounds all that sort of stuff than they are like the actual basketball games itself. Um, Raj, the Lakers played Minnesota today. Everybody had a nice long break.
hmm
Obviously, the big news, we could discuss it in a separate segment for today after this, but like the big news this whole week has just been, um, the Lakers getting rest, LeBron getting rest. And I think yesterday McMenamin reported that Braun might not play in today's game, and then I think, or he might have been ruled out for today's game. Everybody's speculating that there's some ulterior motive behind it, and I think you and I are both kind of a little bit of an agreement that he's just old and he kind of needs a break because he never got one after the Olympics, and
Yeah,
so it is what it is. So they play Minnesota. Austin Reeves comes back. The Lakers are very, very bad turnover wise. They had 22 turnovers in the game. I think they had 11 turnovers in the first quarter. The offense looks like a mess, but somehow it's a single digit game, like at the half. And then I want to say with like 7 minutes left or 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, it's a single digit game again, like 5 points or something like that. And as expected, the Lakers continue to play some undisciplined basketball, porous defense, cold droughts at the wrong times, and they end up losing by double, or they end up losing to the Timberwolves.
yeah,
Where are we at, Raj? Like obviously LeBron didn't play, so the expectations aren't going to be, you're not going to beat a team like Minnesota, which is still a good defensive team, though their offense is kind of crappy, surprisingly crappy.
right.
So, well,
I,
where are
I
you
mean,
at right now?
Minnesota didn't play that well either. I
They
thought,
didn't.
like, and
Yeah.
I thought they had a terrible game, and Anthony Edwards kind of got it going in third with some mid-range jumpers. But when you hold a team to what did Minnesota have, like 87 with like I think 3 or 4 minutes left?
Yeah.
It's a sad day to not be able to score 100 points. And I know LeBron is out. I totally understand that as an excuse or whatever. But some of the passes, the turnovers were just really lackadaisical. The amount of There was one play, I think in the second or first quarter, Renee, where I think Rui inbounded it right to McDaniels, and he just got a
Yeah.
dunk right at the inbound. And no, I'm not looking for performative stuff, but just a little bit of is remorse the right word? Or like some kind of emotion towards that. It was just like, all right, we'll just keep going. Stuff like that kind of annoys me, but yeah, I don't know. Austin, I thought played well. I thought he was the only one, Vinay, that kind of Minnesota is very aggressive on their ball pressure. They're very, they'll
Yep.
attack you physically at the point of attack. And I thought Austin's the only one that kind of used that aggression against them. Everyone else, I thought, kind of folded, to that.
Yeah.
Gabe hit some jumpers, but I didn't think he, collapsed the defense at all. D'Lo, we'll talk about him later. But yeah, then when you don't have that as your ball pressure, and AD kind of struggled as well. I see the chat. JK says Koloko was great. That was my star of
He
the
looked good
game,
today.
honestly.
Yeah.
Koloko, also South Bay star as well. Yeah, that's where I'm at. And I don't know. I'm tired of excusing these losses. We're 1-4 now in our last 5.
Yep.
The next games are Memphis at home, which it looks like no sign of LeBron coming back, even for that one, right? Wasn't with the team today. JJ was asked about it and gave a definitive no, which I haven't watched the video of, but it doesn't sound great. And then after that, it's 2 games in Sacramento, back to back. It's the tough road, tough schedule. I think you can't keep giving up games. You gave up the Atlanta game, obviously gave up tonight. 1 game over 500. You beat a Portland team barely.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you excuse tonight on LeBron not being there? I didn't watch this game. Obviously LeBron would help, but don't want Bron fans coming at me crazy. But I didn't watch this game going, man, we have no chance because LeBron is out. Like these felt like mistakes and issues that are separate from even LeBron just returning. But where are you at with that idea?
Yeah, I don't think I think Braun being available would have certainly helped because it probably would have hopefully cut down on some of these really bad turnovers that we had. Start the game, Austin
He didn't
was
play well in Minnesota last time either, though.
that
If you
is
remember,
true.
like
That is
a
true.
couple weeks ago.
So I don't know. Like with this Lakers team, it's so hard to tell because they could have all their guys somewhat healthy and the other team might not, and we'll find a way to lose the game. So I'm not sure, but I would assume that if we played the kind of defense that we played so far, like we probably have a much better shot at winning the game. And then like Ant missed like a quarter of basketball. Maybe the Lakers capitalize on that with Braun, on the floor.
Yeah,
So I certainly do think that would be the case. That I would assume that we would win the game with Braun available, or certainly not lose the way that we lost at least. But Rod, there's a the theme over this period without Austin, even with Austin, has been pretty consistent. And
Hmm.
um, turnovers haven't really been an issue, like for the entire team. Hasn't been too much of an issue, even during this losing stretch. But the poor defense has certainly been. There was a possession like earlier in the game. I want to say in the third quarter where it was either off of a rebound or a steal, but like Jaden McDaniels gets the ball and he takes it pretty much the full length of the court, and there's actually two guys back, and he just kind of doesn't get challenged at all the way to the rim, and he does a little bit of acrobatics to get the layup off, but it's just like nobody wanted to check him like at half court. Nobody wanted to like maybe bump him a little bit to see if he could slow down. It's not like he's like Kyrie in the open court, right? Like he's not going to do the resistance from the defensive resistance from this team, not even from an ability standpoint, but from a mentality standpoint. Outside of a couple of guys, like I think Cam shows up and he's putting both hands on whoever he's guarding. Like he's making sure that he doesn't let
Sure.
you get to your favorite spots. I think Gabe does that. I think Max tries to do that too to some degree, but like those are like kind of fringe end of the not end of the bench, but like end of our rotation players. Like I'm not seeing that sort of attitude from Rui. I'm not seeing that attitude from Austin. I'm not seeing that attitude from D'Lo. I do see that from AD because he's blocking shots and challenging stuff, but he can't cover for everything. Like I'm a little concerned that the mentality of this team defensively, more than the ability, which is still an issue, has waned. What do you think about that
Yeah.
statement?
Yeah. So I remember JJ came out today and said Rui has been the Laker that has
And he
done.
had an awful game. Yeah.
Yeah, that has played the most consistent. I just again, it's very quickly to just destroy those comments, but I just wonder that what's being asked, right? Like, and that's something that I've kind of tried to hone in on consistently, and I've asked you many times during the Gabe conversation, right? Gabe Vincent, does he sleep well at night? Not from a just a psychological
Yeah.
perspective, but like, is he doing his job in his mind? And I think he is, which is a frustrating thing to watch for Laker fans. Going, this dude's passing up every shot. Dude doesn't, help us anywhere else. Is very passive on the floor, and I kind of look at a team that's just in a passive mindset. But yeah,
Mhm.
so I watched recently. There was Golden State and Houston. Obviously, had a controversial ending, but you watch those two teams play and the level of defense and veracity and care, and maybe it's a cup game, so who knows, but it
Yeah.
just felt like there was an aggressive mindset, a competitiveness that just pops off the screen. I was watching Alperen Şengün. He was like at the level of the screen and just defending and moving his feet, defending his ass off. He's not a good defender. Alperen Şengün was a negative defender, at least before
Yeah.
this year. But Houston has a top whatever defense, and he's a big part of their team. Averages whatever 30 minutes. I know personnel is a big part of this as well. I don't know. I watch a team that switches too much, and I think that's why Koloko stuck out. I thought we ran a lot of drop coverage with that. There's a play in like the second quarter, Austin and I think AD switch for just no reason. Austin ended up on Gobert. AD ended up on the perimeter, led to a perimeter shot. Gobert, of course, got the offensive rebound and then got fouled at the rim. It's just an unnecessary switch. There's a lack of cohesiveness, I don't know, on that end, and I don't think you could win that way. And the offense has completely dropped off. LeBron being out, Austin being out has kind of dealt with that. But I'm with you. There's a level of just a team that's not locked in, and I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if that's accountability. I don't know if that's a team that's just not together, and there's a lot of separation on the team. I don't know where the solution is, but maybe it's a team looking towards the trades. I don't know, I've seen that mentioned as well, but yeah, this is it's ugly basketball, and our like, in my opinion, our talent is far off from the like execution that we're getting. Like, I think we
Mhm.
have better talent than is being shown, but I think it's very easy to just say personnel, and then you look at the trades. It's like, all right, I mean, we're gonna get into them later, but these are all kind of role playing guys. You're hoping come in and do a culture shift. I, I don't know if is that possible this year. I that's I'm watching this team. It's like we are so far from like we have internal issues that need to be solved before looking for outside help. Are you with me on that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think. if the argument is you're not extracting or the players are not giving you the defensive value that you'd expect, even at a baseline level, um, I agree with you. See, the problem is if you had to ask me, I mean, you're
Mhm.
asking me, but like honestly, like I do think to some degree these guys don't know if they're going to be on the team next month, like or in 2 months' time. Like I don't think we saw this sort of happen 2 3 years back when we tried to go for Anthony Davis, and there's a heavy rumor that Lakers were trying to make a trade like at the trade
Yeah.
deadline to get Anthony Davis, and we saw guys just kind of very much underperform. Like we saw Kuzma not play well. We saw Josh Hart not play well. We saw Lonzo kind of up and down. Like the only guy that was actually playing well was Brandon Ingram, and he seemed to not be phased by the trade rumors. And I don't like this is an older group. These are like vet guys. A lot of these guys are like vet guys that have been around the league.
Yeah.
Um, they might just not be trying to play. I don't agree with it, but they might just be like, all right, do I have to really box out on this possession? Is it a big deal? Like, or do I have to make this rotation every single time? Do I need to go battle with this guy? Or do I just need to make sure I make my shots or make sure I'm responsible for the person I'm responsible for, like that sort of thing. And sometimes, Raj, it seems like it's an ability issue. This guy, we take a switch and D'Lo's on Gobert, like you said, and I can't get mad at D'Lo for not being able to stop Gobert from getting an offensive rebound. But then sometimes it's like I can tell you're not trying to play defense. Like you just kind of gave up that switch. You're like,
Yeah.
whatever. Like this, I know this guy's not going to try and score, so I'm just going to take this switch and force my teammate to have to defend, the other guy. So I see that. So I can see it both ways.
Yeah. Some of the stuff that again frustrates me, and I'm with you. I think that can be part of it. It's December. Like those are usually February conversations of, hey, this guy might get moved, and this is also not respective to just the Lakers. Every team has, guys who think they'll be traded. But again, I think that's a culture thing that you can get all your guys to buy in for one common goal. And it's not that like the Lakers are Philly or the Pelicans, right? The Pelicans are what 5 for 20 or 5 and 20 now or
Yeah.
whatever their record is. Philly, I think, is starting to climb a little bit, but they're still, I think, over 10 games under 500. If I have that correct, Lakers are a game over 500. Like they're still in the playoff race. Maybe LeBron being out just lends itself to guys not trying as hard. But there's another possession that you brought up, or I brought up Rui. Like I've seen Rui go toe to toe with Julius Randle, like in previous matchups, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously in these games, I don't think it's a coincidence that he also has 20 on one end. So like those battles are a lot more competitive. But tonight it just felt like Randle put it to him, got to the basket when he
Yeah.
wanted, got to the line, felt zero resistance. And that stuff, I'm not trying to pick on JJ saying Rui's, done everything they've asked, but it was 6'9" big forward. Like that needs to be used.
Randall is the type of guy that Rui should be able to defend. Randall's not going to beat you off the dribble. He has to power through you. Randall is like Rui can't guard. We were talking about it in the big chat, but
Mm,
like Randall can't guard MPJ because he can't get around screens to stop him from taking jumpers coming off of DHO action. But Randall should be able. Oh, sorry, not Randall. Rui can't defend that, but Rui should be able to defend Randall in an ISO. Like if all Randall's going to do is try and back him down, like Rui's strong enough to defend that. And I'm with you. I think today, I mean, Randall hit some tough turnaround jumpers, but like I don't know if we saw the resistance that we wanted to see
yeah,
from Rui.
yeah. There's difference to me. Like obviously, you make a guy take turnaround jumpers, but there's also the level of just he knows there's no resistance to it, so he's getting to his spot. You can kind of tell the difference on when a guy's taking a contested turnaround versus when it's not. I thought the competitive fire, and I don't know what Rui ended up with in terms of rebounding. It doesn't really matter
Mm.
for me. Like while I was watching the game, it just didn't feel like he imposed any will on that end. And maybe again, to your point, maybe that's unfair to ask of Rui Hachimura, but I don't know, guy making $17 million a year. I would hope you have a little bit more expectations than run back and forth and hit 2 or 3 turnaround jumpers once in a while. Like I feel like the bar should be a little bit higher. You used to watch around the league of like what other teams ask of their players. Like there's two-way responsibilities for almost all for a lot of players. And I think for this team, we kind of just throw it away as, this guy can't defend, so we put him in that box.
Mhm.
I don't know, Vinay. I just think this is not a sustainable like formula for winning. It just isn't.
Yeah.
I said this. I said this while we were winning. I could tell that the defense was so bad that
Yep.
like this is not gonna keep up. And now the like win profile is starting to catch up. And it's at a dangerous point here. You play
Yeah.
Memphis next, like I mentioned, a really, really good regular season team, whatever you think of their playoff foibles. And then you play in Sacramento twice, a team I'm not too fond of, but Sabonis just is a matchup killer for us in Sacramento, a very rowdy place. DeRozan's another Laker killer. You could be under 500 in next week.
Yeah.
I don't know where the fix is, and maybe it's trades, but I don't like the total mentality that the team has shown so far.
Yeah, I'm with you about the slippage catching up to him very, very quickly. Especially with the bad defense bleeding into the bad offense. But I'm already at the point where I think a trade is almost like it's necessary. Like you have to make a trade because there is no. I think JJ is out of chess moves. Let me put it that way. I don't think there's any permutation of any lineup combination, starting, sitting, whatever, that he's going to be able to extract more value out of. And I think he's at a point now where he has to, where like the Lakers have to not the Lakers, like Rob has to be like, okay, I have to do something because I'm really, really putting these guys in a position to not be successful. And like JJ's body language in these post games is horrendous, dude. Like he's not saying anything.
Yeah.
And it might also just be that the media reporters don't want to like broadcast. And I don't think the fan base is anti JJ yet. Like
No.
they're not broadcasting his tweet or broadcasting his lines the way they did with Darvin Ham, because it got to a point with Ham where like the reporters are almost baiting Ham to say something that they knew would go viral. And they don't seem to be doing it with JJ. They're just very like, hey, we know we suck. Anything about the game you want to tell us. And JJ's body language has been horrendous, dude. Like, so I want to say I feel bad for him, but he also knows kind of the job he took on and stuff like that. Though he didn't think this would be the roster at the time, but I think we're at the point where like a trade has to be done. And this was going to end up being a segment. But before we go into it, we could probably discuss the D'Lo thing. I'd like to talk about D'Lo. I know he had a really nice game against the Blazers.
Yeah.
Rui also had a really nice game against it. Again, this is the Blazers. It's a bottom 3 team in the NBA. This is a team that
3-point game going into the fourth.
They should have won handily. They were up big. They blew leads, all that sort of stuff. Everything that you thought would happen exactly happened in the Laker win. Then the anti-Braun folks came out and they were like, "Well, see, they look good without Braun." Like again, we said this. I said it in my rant. I'll say it again. Like this is not a healthy way of discussing how this team is going to be successful. But D'Lo has an awful game today. Rui had an awful game today. Like he had an awful game today, but D'Lo had an even more such an awful game that it hurt. Like the Lakers had to Max Christie had to play almost the entire first half because he got into so much foul trouble so quickly. And we didn't get to discuss it on the last pod because I thought it deserved its own segment. But if there was anybody in the group of all the players on the team that if I had to rank the players who might be kind of checked out on the team, I personally would have D'Lo at the very top of that list because the way he is playing basketball right now, since he's been moved back to the bench, and then he's gone back and forth. He started the second half of the Portland game, back to the bench for this Minnesota game. Gabe's still starting over D'Lo since the Atlanta game, I think. It's not been good. Like I know he makes shots in here and there, but it's like I feel like he's playing really safe basketball, and we're not getting the normal D'Lo, even with the ball in his hands. Talk me off of
that. So I remember when we decided to move D'Lo to the bench, and I think we had this conversation, and I said, if we're winning, then I think you'll get a player that's bought in, that's saying and emoting all the correct emotions on the floor. But if you start losing, Like if I just again, I think people don't want to do this because it's very easy to separate yourself from the $1 million basketball player. But Renee, just for a second, you put yourself in D'Angelo Russell's shoes, right? I'm D'Angelo Russell. I just had a career year from three last year.
This is our guy.
And
Sorry, not to interrupt. This is
yeah,
our guy
yeah, yeah,
Paul putting
yes,
Jeremy
sir.
Grant
Paul,
rumors in here.
our Nets fan that wants to take all our first round
He's
picks
trying to
for
get. He's
Dennis
trying,
Schroeder.
desperately trying to get a first rounder for Dennis
Yeah,
right now.
for Dennis Schroeder, who had I think had a really fun
This
game today
this
as well.
saddest part, Rogers. I'm actually scared that we're gonna send our first. Paul's gonna win, man.
Third time's a charm for Dennis Schroeder. That'd be a
Go ahead, go ahead.
three
I
times
interrupted
with
you.
no, you're good. And then second time with LeBron, that's just hilarious. LeBron and Dennis part two. But no, like if you put your shoes in D'Angelo, put yourself in D'Angelo Russell's shoes. I just had a career year from last year. I shot whatever. I broke the Lakers 3-point record. I decided to return, and I was promised another career year. I was promised, a more fun offense to be a part of, a lot more awful actions for me to run off, right? Like a more remember the conversation during training camp, Vinay? It was we didn't really run anything the last 2 years. We were just kind of freelancing it. Those are the type of conversations that were happening. And now I'm not only coming off the bench, um, but I'm also my numbers are way down, my touches are way down. And you said playing safe basketball. It's funny. I watch D'Lo and I look at it as like he's betting all his money on like every shot. It's kind of like you're playing. I forgot what it is, like roulette. It's kind of like these step back threes are just all or nothing, and like if they don't go in, you're screwed, and if they do, then he has a good night. You've kind of lost the playmaking because again, D'Lo stands will kind of bring up the touches aren't there, whatever you want to say it is. I think him and AD still have like a pretty good connection, but yeah, it's just I don't know, Vinay. You bench D'Lo for Gabe Vincent. There's a level of like just disrespect of
It's
of
fair.
that
It's fair.
case, right? It's just
Yeah, I agree.
D'Lo's like I just
See,
averaged 20
the,
a game last year,
but
and
the thing is that like Raj, we've okay, like it's probably not a fair comparison because one guy is cut from a different cloth, I think, and the other guy isn't. But we had a $47 million player who was a former MVP on this team 2 years ago that we sent to the bench after game, and he was, I would argue, playing behind guys who we knew were not better than he was. Like Pat Beverly was not better than Russ. He shouldn't have been coming off the bench for Pat, but Russ did it. And my thing is this is that if you're a player who, and this is my gripe, this is my primary gripe with the sort of being disengaged sort of thing, or just kind of playing safe, is that if you're a player who wants to continue playing basketball in the league and you want to separate, you're going to get traded, or you think you're going to get traded in the next 2 or 3 months, and you want to separate yourself from the tire fire that is the Lakers, right? Wouldn't you want to come in if you don't get to, like, he tweeted it out? I don't know if it's still up there. To control what you can control, like if and
the
I
ominous
honestly thought
tweets.
I don't know if he's clarified the reason for that, but I think he tweeted that before the Portland game, the day of the Portland game, and I was just like, oh, I wonder. I think I put it in the big chat. I was like, oh, I wonder if he found out that even though Braun isn't playing, he's not going back in the starting lineup, and they're going to keep starting Gabe over him, or they'll start somebody else instead of him, and that's why he tweeted that. Might be something, might be nothing. Who knows? But my thing is, if I'm in that position, wouldn't you want to just come in and be so great off the bench that when you leave, you can be like, it was them. Like, it wasn't me. It was them making the mistake. And the thing is that, like, he's doing the opposite, it feels like. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to come in, pass it to, I won't take any risks. I won't put force on the game. I'll just kind of do what they give me, that sort of thing. That bothers me a little bit.
This goes back to again. I'll keep harping on this as like, what is JJ asking of D'Angelo Russell? Like, what's the ask, right? Yeah, we had this whole conversation about Gabe Vincent. Gabe Vincent comes in and looks like he's allergic to the basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Now that he's starting, he's taking a few more shots. Again, the bar is in hell, but like he is taking open threes and driving on kickouts sometimes. Still way lower volume than he did in Miami, but in any case, looks like a little bit more of a confident player. What's JJ telling D'Angelo Russell? He's probably telling him, don't worry about your shot. Run the ball. Elaine, like I can't do JJ's voice, but like, don't worry about your shot. Just run the pick and roll, make
It's
the right
your
play.
tone is too nice. JJ's like
Yeah,
an asshole. He'd be
yeah,
like, "Yeah, just do what you do best. Yeah,
right,
just
right.
don't worry about it. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly, right. And so, like, just hit the skip pass on point, and I think D'Lo's like, all right, that's what you want me to do. All right, cool. Why, like, watch these games go to hell, and then I'm sure D'Lo has the access to the same worldwide internet that we do. He has access to the same numbers that we do. He's
yeah."
like, I'm plus whatever on my minutes. No, like you think I'm joking? This is real
Yeah, you know
stuff
what?
that players do.
I absolutely believe that, Rod. You know why? Because Jimmy Butler's agent came out
Oh
and
yes,
said that Jimmy Butler is a top 8. He's playing like a top 8 player because his plus minus is something. And I was just like, oh my god, people actually do look at it that way. So it could be possible.
100%.
Maybe D'Lo looks
And
at it that way.
again, and I'm not faulting D'Lo for this, but like this is a contract year. Like you know, like his I don't know how many big contracts he has left, but I'm sure he's on the outer, not out of the league kind of, but he's on the out of big contracts left. Once you turn past that 30 age, I just I could see, and I predicted like if you put him to the bench, you better win.
Yeah.
You better win. But hey, Austin Reeves was out for 5 games. I think D'Lo started one of those.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Like again, I don't know how JJ is selling that to D'Angelo Russell, but I don't think there's enough of a sell you can go to a guy who started his whole career. Um, you can joke about the All Star team or whatever, but like it's a player that believes. You know, he averaged 19 a game last year, broke Laker records, and he thinks he did you a favor by coming back. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I signed back on the line to win for continuity, all this stuff that they praised, and now you're benching me for a guy that averages 4 points a game
Yeah. I mean,
because
he
he
said it.
defends.
He said it in his exit interview. Are you gonna let me be me? Are you gonna let Russ be Russ? And you know, now we're here. He's coming off the bench. He's still coming off the bench. So it seems like Gabe is basically, or not Gabe. JJ has basically decided that he wants to run with Gabe to the point where against a big team down LeBron with Austin back, we still played Gabe and Austin together. So we didn't even play like, to counter a big team, plays more shooting to space the floor out and take advantage of that. We still brought him off the bench. So I mean, if he's getting moved, maybe this their way of like protecting D'Lo from getting hurt. They let him come off the bench. He's not having to like kill himself to beat other starting units. I don't know. I don't know the logic of how teams get around to doing it, but I mean, is he at this point like, can you move him back into the starting lineup, like, and still expect like an engaged D'Lo, like, because he might think to himself, "Oh, all it takes is one bad game defensively, and I'll get pulled again." Like,
Yeah, yeah. That's where I think there's got to be some consistency to it. And like again, if this was explained correctly, and again, if the Lakers are winning, I think that's a prerequisite to me for all of this working at
yeah,
all. Then maybe it works. Let me ask you though, not a source or anything, just your opinion. Are you getting a good deal for D'Lo on December 15th? Like and is Rob Pelinka doing a deal on December 15th for D'Angelo Russell?
yeah. It is a great question, but it's such a complex answer. I think the very straightforward answer is no. You're not going to get a great deal for in return for D'Lo. Um, And but the complex answer in a short form is there's so many reasons why you won't get a good answer. Like one of the reasons is because teams around the league absolutely believe that they can get extra picks out of Rob for no reason at all. Like they can just convince Rob that you're the person who's in, like it's a negotiation thing. Like that I absolutely believe other GMs believe that. The other thing is I don't even know if Rob I don't have any confidence in believing that Rob can correctly evaluate a basketball talent that might be on a worse contract than D'Lo on a team, but be a positive asset for what we need fit wise. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were talking about it in the big chat. Like, I gave an example. I said last year the Hawks, the Hawks were begging to find somebody to take DeAndre Hunter off of them, anybody, and like D'Lo, we didn't know if we want to keep him. We had him at the deadline, and I floated it out there. And I had people who are in the industry, writers and all that sort of stuff, tell me to my face, and because I made the suggestion, I said, "Hey, look, if you're not going to keep D'Lo, maybe take a chance on a guy like DeAndre Hunter. I know he gets injured, but the salaries are close. You know what his salary is going to be for the next couple of years. If you can get him to be healthy, or you can get him to play that role off the bench or starting, maybe bump Rui out of the starting lineup. This is before even Vando was hurt, like, or bump Vando in the starting lineup. Maybe you can get something out of him. And then, obviously I'm making this argument in hindsight, but DeAndre Hunter is essentially because Jalen Johnson is so good for the Hawks. DeAndre Hunter is getting moved to the bench. He starts sometimes for Jalen Johnson,
He looks
or when,
incredible.
yeah, and he looks so good. And my whole thing is like, that's me doing it. I'm not saying that I'm smarter than everybody else, but that's me saying to myself, look, I know this guy isn't somebody who's going to be long term with my team. I think this other guy who's a distressed asset or whatever it is, or a negative asset that people say, is on this other team. They don't want to pay luxury tax. They're trying to get rid of him. He's still young. Maybe I can get him for like a heavily protected first, or a lottery protected first in D'Lo. Like, that's a risk I would take. That's the second reason why I don't think Rob will
Yeah.
get a good deal, because he's not good at stuff like that. And so those two things, it just complicates the situation too much. So like it's just, I don't think he will. I'm just hoping that we don't overpay
Yeah.
for guys that we actually do trade for.
Yeah, and so George makes a good point. D'Lo's trade value increases at deadline as an expiring. I could see that as well. I mean, I look at just the history, just obviously just the last year and a half or whatever it is. The last trade we made, Renee, was a top protected pick to Utah for 3 players. I believe that was our last like actual trade that's helped the rust for Vando, D'Lo, and Malik Beasley. One of the guys isn't on the team anymore. One of the guys doesn't exist in our realm. And then the other guy obviously is D'Angelo Russell. I think that's the type of trade that he's going to try to figure out, like some type of deal like that. I don't know what exists in there, what exists in terms of in that situation, like a protected first for 3 helpful players or whatever it is. But yeah, I just can't see a D'Lo move right away, right now, in the middle of December, where the team is middling at 500, where they go and give 2 first rounders, whatever. And I think another like interesting part of this is like the clutch factor, Renee, of like getting a player that's in Clutch's young star group, which is why I think you've pointed this out. But like Brandon Ingram, I think is a player that like I could see. There's a lot of benefits to going after that guy. You make a lot of camps happy by doing that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think Rob's made a trade in December before. Like I don't think we've ever
So
made a deal.
that's a great observation, Raj. We should use that as our segue. I titled the pod episode "Lakers need to make a move sooner than later." And you finish getting your thought out about when Rob makes it, and then I'll segue us into that. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, yeah, I was just saying, like if you remember how these deadlines have gone, Vinay, and I'm not trying to fill your fire here, but like every
No.
single time we get a report of Lakers Lakers do nothing at the deadline, but they'll be armed with X amount of first round picks in the
Oh my
summer,
God.
right? And
Yeah.
every summer we get that report from whichever reporter that's doing their job. And again I keep bringing this up, but I tweeted out like July 3rd. I was like, there's no move coming. I hope everyone's prepared for it. And everyone's like, no, we'll get this guy. Our brother Rome works the trade, machine as well as anyone that I've ever seen work it. And
The
he'll
hardest
give
working
us,
trade machiner, maybe outside
oh
of
my,
Paul. Paul might
yeah,
be the first guy. Number one.
somebody needs to,
Yeah.
give both of them credit for that. But yeah, it's just, I didn't think any move was coming. So that's why I'm skeptical on a move coming in December. There's a lot of noise on a few role guys that have been, I guess, rumored even since the summer. But that's where I'm at with the moves that we just have not made it. Our earliest move was like the Rui trade, which I think was late January, if I have read correctly. So I mean that was also closer to the deadline. Paul makes a good point. This is a very loud December. As a basketball fan, I don't like that. Like I just this December's usually like, oh yeah, all these players are rumored to be traded, but like conversations start, and then in February you get the concrete deals. We're getting concrete deals in December, which is just
Yeah.
it's a strange situation,
What was
but
there's like an event? Isn't there like an event in like January or something like that that happens or something like that where they're like, yeah, the GMs
yeah.
typically all attend this, and then that's where they get to iron out the details to a lot of their
So
teams.
yeah, so December 19th there's a G League showcase
Showcase.
where
That's what
all
it is.
30
Yep.
yeah, all 31 of the G League teams show up there, and all the teams converse and discuss trades and whatever. Yes, that's the 19th through the 22nd. So that's
Yes.
coming up
Yes.
soon.
Yes. Yes. I've had like front office folks mention that like that's like a big place where everybody kind of
Hmm.
gets together and does something. I don't know if Rob's gonna do it, but let's segue into that. The urgency behind making a move. Like that is a big deal because Rob has openly told us that he needs 30 games to evaluate this team. We're
Hmm.
pretty close to that. I don't think you need a full 30 games to come to that evaluation. We already know that they're trying to sneak away from making a trade with the language that they put in that Vando injury news. So like the idea that there's probably two types of fans right now. One that thinks that the Lakers are for sure going to make a trade sooner than later, especially with the Jonas news being out there so much. And then there's another group that just thinks that like they're not going to do anything at all until like the very end. Um, I can see both arguments, especially after that Vando news article dropped. I was like, oh, if you guys try this again, this is going to be like this could be a real problem. And so my thing is you're you're not going for the home run. Like, let's be very clear. The Lakers are super scared to make a home run swing. Like, super
Yep.
scared. They don't have they don't want to do anything big. It's like the Ingram trade. You and I would love it if it was something as simple as obviously he's injured too, so that complicates issues. But like Adilo Rui first, protected first, well, what unprotected first, whatever. Like that's a no brainer. But the Lakers, I think, are too scared to do that. Period, because they just don't commit the Russ thing has just got them spooked, and they don't know how to pivot if they make a move like that, which is fine. But even if you're not going to make a home run move, you have like the front office has to have some urgency behind adding size to this team, even if it's something as simple as getting a center, whether he plays alongside AD or doesn't play alongside AD, because like it's just they're getting overwhelmed and it is very very hard. It would be very hard for us to watch, for fans, and I think the coach to, and even the players to watch themselves get overwhelmed because of the lack of size or the lack of backup center or because guys are not available. And so I think it doesn't have to be December 15th necessarily, but I think sooner than later, like way before January, or not way before, but like early January or maybe the week after the showcase or something, that trade has to happen. Like you have to have something lined up because if you don't and they continue to lose, Raj, it's going to get bad, like real bad.
Yeah. But I guess my question in this, and I've been really, and maybe this me being cynical about trades occurring, but what changed between like now and what information the front office had this summer?
That is a great question. I don't think it. I don't think
I mean,
any.
Vando being
Yeah,
out is like
yeah,
the factor that's been thrown and everything. And I think again, both of us have both believed Vando's a very effective defensive
yes.
player. He's not Scottie Pippen. No, he's not prime Kawhi Leonard. Like there's a way to evaluate this team even with him on or off of it. Yeah, I just what urgency is there? And maybe it's just public pressure. I don't know. The trade that seems most likely to happen is the Jonas Valanciunas trade, which again, like those trades that usually are this loud don't happen. Like like once
Oh
usually
yeah,
when
we've
there's
been on the wrong side of that for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, when there's so much noise that it almost kills the buzz of it somehow. And we even got a report from some Washington reporter that there's what was the word he used? Some indecision in the front office of people of like people who love Jonas and who don't. I'm not.
They want to keep him for veteran leadership.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
was just like, dude, you drafted the center with your first overall pick, bro. You
yeah.
have to play him. What are you talking about? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess we can start to jump on this Jonas ship a little bit. We don't have to go long, but
Yeah.
I don't know, Vinay. I understand like the appeal like or whatever the want of getting Jonas on this team. It's just I feel like he's another slow-footed
Yes.
big on a team that already has trouble getting back in transition, a team that's already slow on very many other positions on the floor, at their guard position, at their forward position. He does help you bang down low. He does let you play next to AD in terms of you can play a 4 or 5. But does Jonas take this team? Like what does just adding Jonas do? Like in your perspective of if you get Jonas for Gabe Vincent and second round picks, which it looks like is the package that's being discussed. Um, where does that jump this team?
Yeah, so I don't know what the analytical like defensive rating lift it gives to the team. I do think it's going to change the way that we play defense. I think the switching is going to be gone.
Mm,
A lot of the switching is going to be gone. I
yeah.
think we're going to go back to playing drop coverage defense. I think we're going to get a 4-5 drop coverage defense where Anthony Davis is playing that role that he played for Vogel when he was like the help side guy.
Hmm.
I'm not against any of that. I think that's kind of necessary. I think Anthony Davis on the perimeter is just you're killing your team. I don't. Okay, the slowness of the team is still 100% going to be an issue. My only hope is that the half court defense and the rebounding gets better, so that we're not giving up offensive rebounds and a lot of
Hmm.
easy stuff. Um, in regards to that, offensively, we're probably the same, maybe slightly worse, depending on how teams decide to guard us. Um, I have an alternative candidate that I tweeted out earlier that I would rather the Lakers pursue. Um, and I wanted to make a case for that. I might have made the case for that earlier, but I want you to get. I want to get your thoughts. So like, what outside of the slow footedness, is there any other thoughts you have on
Yeah,
Jonas for
yeah,
how he helps the team?
yeah. I mean, I go on more. I'm not saying he would hurt the team, but it's just
Yeah.
Jonas is a player that's been in the league a while. Vinay,
Hmm.
right? He's hopped around teams. I think he's helped some teams. He's a player that gets religiously played off the floor in games that matter. You mentioned the drop coverage. I think that's true. Also, like it's very tough to play drop coverage with a big that can't jump. Like, and I think this is one of the reasons why he gets played off is because obviously he can't switch, and
Hmm.
teams just pick on him because he can't defend any really mid-range scoring. Like if a guard has a floater, he's done. He can't really jump back for lobs. And again, he's a helpful player. I would understand the appeal of going to get him. I don't think he solves as many issues as like I think it's being sold as. But get a guy that I think maybe it might just be a bucket in the war of attrition, right? AD doesn't have to box out.
Yep.
Tonight he was going against Nas Reed, Gobert, and Julius Randle for all 40 of his minutes or whatever he played. So it might just be a line in the sand for that, and you just forget about you worry about the playoff concerns when they come. But that's mostly and I think he's oversold as a shooter. Takes like 0.1 threes a game.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, he's not
That
he's a back to the basket big, very traditional big.
yes,
That's where he makes most of his bones. He likes to bump and grind in the post.
it
Like that's his sort of
it
way of playing.
yeah, he's a solid post up player, but
Yeah.
again, I think on this team that doesn't give as much as maybe some other teams do. The way we surround that, we attack that, but yeah, that was my thoughts on Jonas. I'm not as high as I think people can tell from my multiple analysis of his game. So we'll see if he becomes a Laker. But yeah, I want an athlete at that position. And I think that's why Jackson Hayes seemed intriguing, even though obviously the floor is so low. It's why I'm so high. I push Koloko because I think we very quickly want finished products at that position. But I think he's our best young defensive prospect that we've had since Zoo, maybe
Mhm.
in 2019 or whatever that was. So yeah, and Koloko was great tonight, plus 12. I thought he handled his minutes very well. I wanted to see some Koloko 80 minutes. That never came. But obviously Jonas is better than Koloko. I don't know, but I don't think he fits what I watch. I see what we struggle with, and I'm like, all right, and you bring in a guy that can't move on his feet, that doesn't run back as quickly in transition. It doesn't excite me, I guess, as other guys. But let's go to let's move to Vucevic. I think
Yeah.
is your guy. You want
Yeah.
to make the case
Actually,
for?
before we do that, let me. Do you think if they do add Jonas or a center, like a good
Hmm.
center, Jonas level center,
Mhm.
Do you think they would go back to that 4-5 look with AD at the four? Do you think the defense gets good enough? Like transition defense, let's just accept it's going to be terrible. It's
Sure.
just not going to be good. Like that's going to be the Achilles heel to the Lakers. But does the defense get significantly better if we play bigger and we move
Uh,
Braun to like the
uh,
three?
yeah, I think there's a world it does. I think that would. I don't think Jonas would like start right away. I think he would still be the backup center. I think that's what they're looking for. But I think it just gives you more options to play that 4-5. It
Mm,
gives you a big look. It does become interesting because then obviously you move LeBron to the three, and that makes your 1 and 2 very interesting as well. Or is Rui coming off the bench, or is Rui not in that lineup anymore? Is it Austin and
yeah.
Dalton surrounding those three guys? So I think that's an interesting look as well. I do think the defense, the half court rebounding would improve. Jonas is a great rebounder. That's one of his, top skills. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't think I look at this team. I'm like, man, we need athletes like bad, right?
Yeah.
Minnesota. Look at Minnesota, Vinay. They just run you off with athletes at every position, and we seemed a step slow all night. But
But why is it that they're able to be effective? Why is Minnesota effective with Gobert, who is a non-shooter? He's a slow guy. He's not a big. He's not a fast guy. He's a big body. What is it that Minnesota gets out
yeah,
of? And obviously, he's a great defender. Like
mhm.
they find ways to not get him to be out on the perimeter, other than like very late game situations where he gets gamed by Luca or something like that.
Yeah,
But
that's
like
that's a good point.
like what are do we think? So my thing is this. I think at the end of all this, after making moves and stuff like that, I think a core part of what has to happen is there has to be a conversation with JJ. Um, Obviously, there's a big basketball evaluation part of it, but there has to be a conversation with JJ of can this guy fit into the schemes that you want to deploy. Like if you want to play two bigs, and I'm saying this because JJ was asked today about why is it that we haven't seen like Christian Coloco play next to AD? Like why are we only seeing Rui or LeBron play the 4 or 5 next to AD? And JJ said specifically he just prefers that. So I'm trying to like read between the lines a little bit, and it makes me think
Hmm.
that there's more of a scoring spacing complement with LeBron and Rui at the 4 5 next
Hmm.
to AD, and that's why they want to do it. Which is why I want to make the suggestion for Vucevic. Um, I basically what I'm trying to say is I think you can get enough of a bump from the half court defense by
Mm,
playing bigger um, that JJ can get to work. Um, and the case that I wanted to make is if we're going to do that, if we're going to add a big that can play next to AD as
mhm,
well as backup AD for when he goes to the bench, the same way that we did for like when the years we won the championship. I wanted to make the case that we should go and trade for Vucevic because it sounds like his value is very low. They want to get
mm,
rid of him. Maybe just getting out of his salary. Maybe D'Lo in a second, and like Christian Wood, whatever the filler, or Cam Reddish, whatever the filler needs to be, to make the salaries work. And we'll find a third team to open up. I don't know. Then we would get back only one player. Like we created an open roster spot. Like the reason I'm making the case for that is okay. Let's accept that Jonas. We'll use your logic, which is true. Jonas is slow footed, not
mhm.
really an athletic rim defender. Neither is Vucevic, and he's
Sure.
also slow footed as well. But Vucevic is an actual scoring threat. Like he's a
Yeah.
legitimate scoring threat at his position. And my thing is, I don't mind the idea of getting a guy who is very skilled and can fit in offensively that won't hurt your star players. Should they need him to knock down a couple shots, or should your star players go down and they get hurt, or whatever the issue might be? Um, I like that better. Now, I think most people would be like, well, you got to give up D'Lo. D'Lo's our best trade chip. We want D'Lo for Dorian Finney-Smith. My thing is, if we can trade for Vucevic and it costs us less assets to obtain him because of his salary, age, whatever it is, um, can we not just use some of those picks to get a better deal for make a more competitive offer for Dorian Finney-Smith, like and try to land Daron Sharp or whoever it is that we land on the other side. That's the way I'm kind of approaching it. Talk to me about the idea
Oof.
of Vucevic instead of Jonas.
Yeah, I think Vucevic is the better overall player,
Mhm.
and I think that's shown in what he makes as well. And he would give you that spacing option, kind of a poor man's Marc Gasol, I guess, is kind of the
That
look that you're
that's
going
exactly the way
for.
I think of him. Also a good
Yeah,
passer,
good
out
passer.
of the post, too as well. And he's a corner 3 guy and an above the break 3 guy too. I don't know his percentages, but
Yeah.
capable of knocking down both.
And again, I don't think he would be a bad addition. I think he would help the team. He would raise the team's floor, right? You give you another offensive option. He can space the floor. I still think like what this team at its core needs, and again, there's no perfect trade out there, right?
Yeah.
You're not getting Donovan Mitchell from the Cavs, or you're not getting some superstar player to come in for low assets. So there's even the Dorian trade isn't perfect, right?
Yeah,
He's a nice player, but he's not going to change your life in some capacity. So I could see it with Vucevic. I still think this team just needs like defenders that raise the
for sure.
defensive floor, right? And Vuce, I think he gives us size that we didn't have, and that's like being 7 foot has his. I think he's 7 foot or whatever, 6'11", whatever it is. Giving size always helps on that end, but you mentioned it, not a great rim protector. Doesn't give a lot of resistance at the basket. He's a good rebounder, so I think that fits in as well. Does get a
Yeah,
lot of rebounds, and it obviously I think it would help AD having another big guy down there. So I could see it again. Not the biggest Vucevic fan, and I also like wonder, is AD still the mobile four that he was 4 years
mm,
ago? I don't know the answer to that. Like
yeah,
I think playing the four has different responsibilities, and I do think AD is still an incredible help defender. It's just that four position. I think there's a level of fluidity that's needed in your game that I think has dropped, in the last few years. But yeah, I could see it. I would rather have Vooch than Jonas. Like if that was my decision, I think they would cost. I think the cost is a little different, but to your
mhm,
point, there's a way to make that work. But I can see it with Vooch. I just again, I would like that position to be someone who's defensive minded, and I think that's why I see a guy like we that's why Jackson Hayes I thought excelled in the small role that he was. Is just an athlete that can jump, that can block shots and give some resistance there. But Vooch would raise the floor of the team, and if you can get him for a small package, I would understand it. USC guy as well, so I'm sure has some California ties to him that you
yeah.
can pull. I think he's a clutch guy too. If I have that,
Is he clutch? Oh,
it,
that would be I didn't even think of that. I should probably double check,
I,
if he's
I
clutch or not.
I thought he was. I may be mistaken, but but yeah, I could see it. I don't. You'd rather have Vooch for sure than Jonas, right? That
100%.
is your
Yeah,
case.
yeah. I don't think so. I think D'Lo's contract obviously has a lot of value, but who you're trying to trade D'Lo for, I think it doesn't matter if they get back
Mm,
D'Lo or not. Like, so I know there's this been thing where the Brooklyn Nets are turning around and saying because the package that's been discussed is D'Lo going to Brooklyn, and
mhm.
my thing is that like we like that trade's not going to fix everything for us, and we certainly need a little bit more than that, and the I guess I just don't know what the cost is going to look like. So my thing is, if I can get a better return for D'Lo that doesn't cost as much, then I'd be more willing to like. I'd even be willing to entertain moving Rui if it brings back like if I go to Brooklyn and say and I tell Josiah, hey, I'll give you Rui Hachimura instead of D'Angelo Russell, and you send me back Dorian Finney-Smith and send me back like Zaire Williams, like some guy
Mm.
that like that's not going to be in your rotation. I don't want Dennis Schroeder. I really don't. Like, does Brooklyn take that? Maybe they might be like, okay, we don't really want Dorian. We don't really have plans for Zaire in the future. Um, Rui doesn't complain. We're going to trade away Cam Johnson at some point. Like they can't put a product on the floor that's absolutely terrible, like to the point where like nobody's going to even show up to the games. I'm sure that they're going to try and have like some sort of entertaining product on the floor. Okay, maybe we'll take Rui. Maybe we'll take Rui for DFS and Zaire Williams, and you throw us a protected first.
Yeah,
They might take that. Is that a better fit? Does Austin, Dorian Finney-Smith, LeBron, AD, Vucevic also all of a sudden sound like a much better lineup, balanced out lineup of offense and defense? I don't know.
yeah,
Moves Dalton to the bench. You still have Gabe coming out the bench. Max is still there. now everybody's slotted and maybe one slot down, like one
Yeah.
rep down all the way. That's the way I kind of think of it.
That's interesting. I really, because I think most of the conversation obviously has been dominated by D'Lo, and then the next one is, would you move Austin in this? Would you move Dalton
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this deal? Fascinated what the Lakers evaluate. You bring up evaluation a lot. I'm fascinated what their evaluation of Rui is. Right, what
Mhm.
a player you got for very low, and someone in the chat mentioned that there was I guess some turmoil in Washington that led to him being
Yeah.
Rui trade was an anomaly. He was having his own personal problems, which can be the case, but any other team could have also traded for him, and the Lakers were able to go out to get him. I think he's another guy that they push as like a franchise win, I guess, right? You went and got him. He played well in the playoffs for you, and you extended him, for a number that felt right. I wonder what his evaluation is. I think he's a more talented player than Dorian. Would you? I think you would. Would you agree with that?
He is, but I think the issue is sort of what we discussed before. We now have too many guys. We have a lot of guys that need touches, and
Hmm.
the idea behind adding a guy like Dorian is so that we can push Rui out of the starting lineup and put him as a sixth man, and then basically play a role where he gets a ton of touches. Um, but if you add like Vucevic, who probably will need touches with the bench group, that sort of thing, um, to try and beef up the size of the lineup, then Rui's touches become very, very like it is very clear, Raj, that if you are not using Rui Hachimura the way that you're using him in that Portland game, where he's caught like every possession, he's coming to set the screen, touching the ball, getting his isolation touches in the mid range. Like you are not going to get the best version of Rui. Like I know he had that 30 game stretch or whatever in the Memphis series, but people need to go back and look at the amount of shots that Rui Hachimura was taking that first year he was with us in the playoffs. He was averaging at least 10 shots a game, at least 10 shots a game. Like he was regularly part of that offense because
Yeah.
Braun was a little compromised. AD was also a little compromised physically too as well. So the Lakers had to lean into Austin, Rui being contributors on the offensive end. Um, and then go watch last year's playoffs, like against Denver. Like Rui had a game where he shot 4 times, then 7 times, then 4 times, then 8 times, and it wasn't until we basically were last game of the series he shot 15 times. Like if you're not using him to shoot the ball to score, you're you have to play somebody who will help you in other areas. Like he's not his best skills involve scoring, and you
Yeah.
need guys that can rebound and defend in that position. So if you have too many guys, if you haven't your scoring, I think the way we've discussed it is like our scoring group, Braun, AD, Austin, those are the big dogs. But if you add a guy like Vooch or Jonas, would be another guy who would need touches to some degree to be part of the offense. And now you have Dalton, where you're trying to get touches or develop or whatever it is to get touches. You got it's like 5 guys. Where does Rui fit in with any of
Yeah.
that?
That's I guess that was my overall point was, is his value kind of at the lowest that it probably could have been, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that's a tough place to work from, especially when you have a guy contractually signed for another
Mm-hmm.
year still. That's where I would be still a little surprised if Rui was traded. But Vinay, I think they're going to try at least, and it looks like conversations have already been had from all the reporting that's going around that Gabe Vincent and second round picks have been kind of
That seems to
flying
be the move that they're gonna.
the old reliable, which was like PhD Patrick Beverly and or whatever it was a few
Yeah,
years ago. Um,
was it the SpongeBob meme?
oh yeah,
Have you seen that the SpongeBob meme? It has like Taylor Horton Tucker's picture in like this little
yeah,
suitcase. It's his old reliable. Yeah. I think that's what the joke is.
yeah, right. Which is now just turned into Gabe Vincent and first round pick. It's just again this can just keeps getting kicked down the road like every year, which is why again I'm just cynical about any move being made. But yeah, it's just frustrating to we're already here, like at a point where, it feels like everyone believes, and including the team, that they're just not good enough. You can see it pour out, and I don't know if that has anything to do with LeBron's absence, but I know this wasn't like on our
Yeah.
list to speak about, but I think after that Atlanta game, Vinay, I'm not saying he's gonna retire or something like that, but like after the Atlanta game, LeBron puts up whatever he did, scored 39 points and played 40
Triple
minutes,
double, yeah.
triple double, and was played heavy, hard minutes. These weren't just relaxed 40. This is a heavy, tough gas on the pedal, and it wasn't enough. AD also had, I think, 39 and 15, whatever he had on that night, and those two together couldn't pull you past the Hawks team that was playing well. I mean, but I mean, you weren't playing Boston or Oklahoma City or these top teams. I just it sucks that we're here, but it looks like that's where we're at. Looks like a trade is coming. I guess my last question, even is: does a trade happen December 15th? Do we get a move?
I think I don't know if you get it on December 15th. I think
Mhm.
you will get it before the trade deadline. I think that's what's gonna
Oh
happen.
man, really going out on a limb
I don't,
here.
I don't know. Because bro, I don't know. I don't like everything that's been said so far by Rob and everybody else should indicate that a trade is coming on December 15th, like very soon after December 15th. Like him continuing to evaluate from that point onwards is that's when it starts to become, oh, I think you're just buying. For me, it would be like, oh, are you just trying to buy time for something, hope that something else falls into your lap, and that would be disappointing for me, because again, that just tells me that you have no conviction. My number one thing when I said it in the space, my number one issue is this team has no conviction in what direction. Like if you think Jonas is the person that's going to incrementally help you get better in whatever areas you think you need to get better, then you go and you make the move. And if you're wrong, then you're wrong. But at least you made that decision and you didn't waffle about it. Like that Vando story coming out of them saying they can't really evaluate the team until he's back or haven't been able to, that concerns me, Raj, because that's the waffling, not having basketball convictions thing that I'm talking about. And your question is, do they do it on December 15th? I hope so, dude. I was joking in the playback with the coaches den guys. Shout out to all the guys there. I was just like, I hope we find out on Sunday morning that Gabe Vincent is not suiting up for the Memphis game, because that'll mean he's probably getting traded that night, or he's getting traded after the game. If the Lakers lose, they'll probably release that news, so then everybody's talking about the trade. Nobody's talking about them being a 500 team. So I'm hoping so, because it would be very, very annoying to hear Rob say, "We're holding these picks for a star." Okay, well, you know what? We need 30 games to see how this is going to go, and then nothing happens on December
Yeah,
15th. That would be super annoying.
yeah, yeah. And again, that's just the outcome I see happening. I just not to like spew
No, no, fair, fair.
negativity
Go
and
ahead.
on all of this, and but I just the way I've seen this play out, I seen it too many times, and Gabe Vincent still has another year crazily on his contract somehow, and
I feel so
I
bad for Gabe, man.
I
Yeah,
think
I feel
I
bad for
think
all of our role players. But go ahead, yeah.
yeah, I think you said this in your rant, but like Jonas could have just came here. I mean,
Dude, like it's so crazy. There were teams out there that had cap space that were more than happy to take on contracts for like a second round pick. They probably would have actually taken on multiple players for
yeah,
for for inexpensive amounts. Um, and here you are trading a second round pick anyways, like to try and get him, and
yeah,
we lose 20 what 24. Let's say they do it on December 15th, you lose however many games of sample size, which we could have used him, Raj. Like we
yeah,
could have
yeah,
used him for so many of these games that might go from wins to losses, or sorry, losses to wins for us.
yeah.
And so anyways,
Yeah,
yeah, go
and
ahead.
then yeah, I mean that's one scenario, and obviously I remember Dallas was able to kind of go and trade Tim Hardaway Jr. out, and they went and got they were able to get Klay Thompson, and they also added who's the guard they added that's playing really well on their team, kind of an athletic guard. I think he was on the Knicks. Uh,
Oh, Quentin Grimes.
yes, another
Yeah.
player. Again, that's to your point.
Dude,
That's
we messaged you in the chat when the trade happened. I was like, was he available? I
yeah,
didn't know he
right.
was available.
Yeah, I was like, man, that dude is good, an athletic guard that hits threes and just fills their team. And you watch Dallas play, and you could
Crazy.
tell there was there's there was a basketball idea that was created for
Yes.
that team, and that they've been able to construct. Yeah, and I don't know where the Lakers go with this, but
Even if you're not a Dallas fan, you can look at that roster and tell exactly what they tried. They said we've got Luca, an all galaxy creator and
yeah,
player in general, and we've got Kyrie, who is an all galaxy scorer. And
hmm,
all we're going to do is go and get as many 3-and-D guys we have, with the only caveat being we need the defense part of the 3-and-D to be guys who can basically switch, and if they can't switch, they can at least stay matched up to their assignments and not need like help in those situations. Quentin Grimes is another guy. PJ Washington is a guy that they do, and Najee Marshall. They went and got Najee Marshall. Like and like all they ask these guys to do is you get an open shot from Luca, take it, and if you got
yeah,
to defend somebody, just defend them. Nobody's coming to help you. And they went and got guys like that. And it's so simple, Raj, but they had conviction in it. They traded away a guy that they liked in Josh Green. They traded him to Charlotte just to get rid of Grant Williams because
hmm.
they didn't want Grant Williams on the team anymore. Like you just have to have some basketball conviction and commit to it if you really believe in it. And we'll see, man. We'll see if Rob's got the ability to do that.
Really quickly, I think the player that changed the Mavericks' life, and I think this is important because it's kind of we're in this cycle of trying to find one of these guys. Is Derek Lively kind of changed the Dallas
Yeah.
Mavericks' life? Like
They tanked the
find
season to keep that pick to get him. Yeah.
right, right. Which I still like. You just throw away a season of Kyrie, but it worked
Yeah.
out in the end. But Derek Lively finding an athletic, jumpy, twitchy center that
Yeah.
screens hard and rolls well for your stars, that does all the dirty work, doesn't complain once, will get hit in the elbow, not hit in the eye with elbows, and just
Yeah.
keep on playing. I think and you watch them, and you watch other teams, you watch Oklahoma City, you watch all these teams with like a like cohesive plan of a basketball team they want to build, and we're looking for it, we're trying to find it, and it looks like we're gonna go the trade route, I
Yeah.
guess. Third
That's
20
I mean
games in.
that's the only way. I think Anthony Irwin, he said that the Lakers are looking at Markel Fultz
Oh
as
yes.
a potential signing. If they create an open roster spot, sounds like if they trade away like D'Lo and Gabe, they're going to try and backfill with somebody off of free agency with one of those open roster spots. So who knows what direction that the Lakers go in? But you and I both hope that they make a move sooner, at least stagger it, Raj. Like get Jonas, get 10 games of Jonas, see if it's actually going in the direction that you want. And then maybe during the trade deadline, if D'Lo's still on this roster, Rui's on the roster, Ingram gets healthy, maybe it's easier to trade for Ingram because his offers have been garbage, and you can land a guy like him. Like it's just you can't. I don't think you can do everything in one shot. Like I don't think you can do this the same way they did with Russell Westbrook, where you did everything at the same time and
Yeah.
you flip the switch like that. I don't think you can do that with this team. I think you've got to like make some moves now, and then maybe do something splashier if the opportunity arises at the deadline. Anything else, Raj? We're right on time.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's a tough schedule coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep pointing that out. Looks like I don't think LeBron will play Sunday, so I'm guessing it's another game where
Yeah, he's like missing it. I mean, we didn't really discuss it. He's like missing in action. It's like very ominous the way that they've discussed it.
a little
You want to try?
sabbatical.
Yeah, you want to hit some of these questions, Raj, before we go?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I
Let's
know you
let's do
starred
some.
them. Uh,
Yeah, I had a few of them that I try to star as we go. I'm just kind of going through, see if there's any other
yeah.
here that I guess we can
We
start.
can we can do this one because he's
Okay.
had a few different questions. JK Lobos asks in the chat. Sorry, let me put it on there. He says, "Will you trade AR and Rui for Cam and DFS?" Where Cam has been hot on online. Like everybody's just like
Mm-hmm.
Cam Johnson, the greatest thing since white bread. I am not as crazy about Cam Johnson. There is a crazy version of I think Rob Pelinka probably squints his eyes a little bit and sees like a young Danny Green in Cam Johnson, and I could see him like going after something like that, like giving up a first rounder for somebody like him. What do you think about the idea of adding both?
Yeah,
Let's just let's
yeah.
just go there.
I don't think AR is in any deal. So I think AR and Dalton, in my opinion, are off any trades that we make. I mean that would be the best case. I would think you're more in the kind of trade world, but I think that would cost both your first. That right? I mean to get, or Paul maybe would have an answer on this, but like
Paul,
getting
Paul, our resident Nets expert is going
yeah.
to try and get us to send all of our picks
Well, I mean,
to
like, Vinay,
this
if you're
guy.
getting Cam and DFS, might as well throw in Dennis and just let's make it a
Oh
party.
my
Like, just get
god,
all three of the Nets' most viable role players back. No, I wouldn't trade AR, but Rui for both of those, I would
for
go
sure.
that route.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's maybe like a D'Lo Rui for those two, depending on what that other picks would be going out. I'd be curious to see what that looked like.
Uh,
And
okay,
then
I
we could
got
hit
one.
one more question if you have.
Yeah, let's see this one from Mark. I think a 3-team deal on the Nets, Houston, us. Cam going to Houston, Brooks going to LA, and D'Lo going to the Nets. Would you like Dylan Brooks from the Houston Rockets? Is that, I mean, fits
If
your
if he if
goon?
he and if he and Braun can't hash out their issues, I think so. I think Dylan adds. He stumbles a little bit into the your antics are actually hurting the team territory, but I think he does add like an attitude and
Well, y-
a defensive resistance this team doesn't have.
yeah, yeah. But like, why does Houston do that? Like, they're legit good right now. They're 5 or
Maybe
6
maybe
games.
because they just want to get more shooting. I think Houston is a really, really great defense. I think that logic is Houston is really great defense, but they need
Mm,
some more scoring, more shooting. And since they're already such a great defense as a team, and then they have a couple other guys. They have like Tari Eason on that team, who's a pretty good
hmm.
defender. I think they probably have some other guys can eat some of those
Amin
minutes.
Thompson.
Yeah, I'm in Thompson. That can eat some of those defensive minutes. So that's probably where the logic for that trade's coming from. Um, but I'm not against it. I would like to try and see if we can do that without any picks at all. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know if Dylan Brooks and LeBron is a combustible situation. I think it might still be because they don't seem to get along very well. So I think that's a little bit of a problem.
A little meta world peace or
Yeah,
situation, maybe,
yeah,
little
yeah,
rivals. Lance Stevenson was the last one, I think.
yeah, yeah. That is true. Yeah, there are a couple of guys that really went after Braun.
Pat Bev and Russ seem to,
Yeah,
squander their differences for
yeah, yeah.
for a season. So there's a
Would you
world.
would you trade if Detroit came to you? I'm just gonna throw this last one out there. Detroit, I may have proposed before. Detroit comes to you and says, "Send us D'Angelo Russell, and you guys can get Isaiah Stewart." Do you do that?
Uh, I don't think so. I don't think Isaiah Stewart changes much. Again, I'm not a big Pistons watcher, but I think he's a fine player. But I would hope you would get more for D'Angelo Russell than.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you another one, Raj,
All
and
right.
this will honestly be my last one. Um, D'Angelo Russell and filler to the
Uh-huh.
Utah Jazz for John Collins.
Oh,
This is
man.
a real. Do you value basketball or do you value like how people talk about John Collins sort of thing?
Yeah, that's the tough part. I think, I think John Collins has played really well this year, right? He's had a really good year in Utah. Um, I worry about the same situation that he had in Atlanta, where it was kind of a team that wanted to win, and he didn't do any of the stuff. I'm guessing that's why he was kind of traded out of there for nothing, right? They traded John Collins for like 2 second round pick or a second
Yeah,
round pick or something like
nothing
that.
really of value. Yeah, Jalen Johnson needed to play. They had to get John Collins out of there. Like he had to
Right.
start.
But I mean, Collins was a big part of their playoff run.
Yeah,
Man, I would heavily think
athletic
about it.
four can
Yeah,
play the five.
you're betting on some upside, right? I mean, if that's the only deal left, I think it's something I would think about. How about you? Would you do that one?
If there was nothing else, like if
Yeah,
we're
that's
like
what I would say.
10 minutes left and the trade deadline's coming, and Danny Ainge comes to us and says, "Look, just send me D'Lo, uh, and like literally salary filler, like anybody
Yeah.
that you don't want, and I will send you John Collins." I might do it. Just stick him at the four, dude. Move Rui to the bench and let him go help AD out on the glass and defending the rim. He can defend the rim. He's not he's a good still a good athlete. There's an IQ issue with him for sure, but
You know,
I do it. I
he
consider it.
reminds me of like Josh Smith a little bit. He's not as athletic as Josh Smith, but reminds
Yeah,
me of kind of that type of player where it's like, man, why aren't you better. Like the
Yeah.
talent's there, the shot is there. Seems like he can pass a little bit, but something doesn't resonate into winning basketball.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that kind of shows D'Lo's market, I guess. The trades you just gave me, like my God, man.
Yeah. I think the thing that's going to dictate how long D'Lo remains in the league will be his ability, his willingness to come off the bench. I think if he's willing to come off the bench, he's and then be like a spot starter for when guys are out. I think he'll stick around the league for very long. But if he doesn't, I think it's gonna be like an Evan Turner thing where he's gonna go from this situation to being like a MLE guy to eventually like teams will be like, do we have somebody else that we can use that money on that's better? But Raj, Lakers still have basketball games they have to play. We have a game against Memphis coming up, and we have, like you mentioned at the top of the pod, a ton of teams that we've got to deal with. And hopefully LeBron is back from his sabbatical, and the Lakers will get whatever our version of our healthiest roster that we can get, so we can stack some wins. If not, I hope we at least get a trade on December 15th, if not sooner, so that we can at least start seeing a more realized, more balanced out version of this team, and we can figure it out. But as always, folks, we appreciate you if you were here with us at the start, or if you joined halfway through. I will get this up on Apple and Spotify sooner than later, so you guys can enjoy it on the weekend. And whether you're listening to this now or you end up listening to this later, we appreciate you very much. And we hope you have a wonderful day. And if nothing else, we'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.
Peace.